So, Mike, just a quick introduction for about Open Governance Initiative. I started this back in 2025 when I was seeing all the city council meeting public comments are very hard to access. So it initially started as summarization of the meeting and we presented at Dublin City Council as well, if you remember so. And since then we branched into news and now we publish news articles in 13 to 14 different cities. And we are increasing every day.
Okay.
Cities every day. Now we are, if you see the site hits, we are higher than Pleasanton Weekly, which was
You
which
there?
was the Herculean task for a 6 month on being questioning, and we want to make sure that people get the right information, which is easily accessible. So that's why we started this initiative. And Molly is our news reporter as well.
Yes, right now I'm covering Livermore. So I'm from Livermore, but yeah, I'm covering Livermore.
And that was one of the questions I had. So where are y'all from? You're local. I have seen you cover some folks in cities close to Sacramento and various other places. And I like some of the things that you have said. I'm going to be honest with you without going down a rat hole. I think that whole thing you covered with, and I didn't have a chance to talk it to you, but I think there was some commentary about the vice mayor thing here in the city of Dublin. And I got to tell you, there was more to that story. There was a lot more.
Oh, that is not a part of our discussion today. I know that.
Yeah, we won't go there. But what I'm saying is, I like what you guys are doing. I think some of your interviews have been pretty good, well written, and I appreciate you reaching out to me.
Sure. And I do want to use this as a platform for a candidate to even present themselves. That's why we are asking the questions which are little different than everybody else.
Sure. Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. I appreciate you giving me the structure to at least let me know where your thoughts are and your focus is, and what's important to the reader or your subscribers as well. So
yeah, of course. Well, why don't we dive into, do you want to give us a 2-minute introduction about yourself and your campaign and what you want the voters to know?
Sure. I have 4 decades of private sector, corporate finance, banking, and treasury. And I was winding that down and I was elected. I thought, hey, it would be good to start thinking about my community rather than my commute. And it's just a time, and I will fast forward by saying the experience has been great because I never really realized how many people actually have so many different viewpoints. And I think that's the hardest thing to realize when you go in, that everybody's perspective, it doesn't matter what it's about, is really important to them, right? And it should be to me as well. But those are some of the things, the transitional things, in corporate life. You have different objectives. They're laid out. You got to deal with the corporate politics and everything else, but you go along with it, and you come home and you adjust or whatever it is. It's a whole different life. But this has been fantastic. I think the city of Dublin's been great. I have been not only a member of council, but the vice mayor and the mayor. I was appointed the mayor in 2024 during some very difficult times for the city, transitional, some geopolitical issues, a whole bit. So I've worn a lot of hats. I've accumulated knowledge through, I probably am on the most committees of everybody on council, all the way from housing to water resources to transportation, all over the place. That experience, it has been extremely helpful in allowing me to formalize a more comprehensive approach and knowledge base for what the city's residents want. And so what I'm doing now is I wanted to stay away from the fray. I decided not to run in 2025. I held to my word. And I told him, the next cycle I'm going to do this. And I'm holding to my word. I think I have, as I said, a much more in-depth understanding of what the role of the mayor is. And honestly, to get this under 2 minutes, I can make an impact, okay, with that background, with the comprehensive viewpoints and a few other things, willingness to roll up my sleeves and not just get involved, with the pageantry, if you'll permit me. There's a lot to being a mayor. It's not a ceremonial role. It is a role of leadership, and it's important to me. So with that, I've decided to run. I've got a campaign moving forward. There are a lot of unhappy people in the community right now, the way things have been going, more so on the operational flow of the council, not so much the city. Okay, the city is great. You got some great folks there. So I can, I've done it before. I've done it under hard times, and my background will be very useful in this role. So that's kind of like the fast and furious. There's a lot of other things we can talk about, but that's what I'd like people to understand, is that I'm prepared. I've got the overall view, many different areas, not just very narrowly focused on special interests. So I'm going to leave you with that.
That's great. I like how you said you started worrying about your community, not your commute.
Yeah.
I like that line.
Do you know how nasty the snow grade can get?
Yeah.
It was. And then I used to commute to San Francisco too.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Anyway, and when you have little kids, you're hustling to get home, right?
Yeah.
So,
my dad used to commute a really long way as well. So I get it.
yeah, I've had it. I know it. So yeah, that's it. Well,
Awesome.
why don't you go into it? If you want to just go down the list and phrase it any way you want, and I'll just have I feel like it's a lot easier for people to have this informal interaction, as long as we're within your time constraints as well.
Of course.
So
do you have a question, or should
Well, I would, you can go through the questions.
Yeah, because I was looking at your profile and you talked about putting the needs of Dublin residents is your first priority. And if you could just speak to what that looks like for you, and if you have specific examples of what that looks like.
Yeah, and I actually, not to give you the cliche, hey, I'm glad you asked that question, but I am actually glad you asked that question, because I think oftentimes elected officials get so involved in the political process, the process of election, and these expectations. They like the I'm trying to think of the word, the attention, right? They like whatever the power is in whatever. I'm not like that, right? I think my viewpoint is that we have to know who our bosses really are. I come out of the private sector, like I said. I know who my bosses were. It wasn't just the CFO. It was the shareholders, right? It was the board of directors. It was all this. We on council are like a board of directors. Our bosses are our shareholders, our residents, right? They are part of the process. We forget that. I'm not saying everybody does, but it's very easy to get wrapped in to the process, the kind of high level process, and forget about the needs and the perspectives of our residents. And I kind of led into that in the beginning. And I think the biggest thing is we're elected to represent our residents and make decisions that affect the city on their behalf, right? But the expectation is that all members of council, including the mayor, have the responsibility to listen, not just hear, but listen and follow up on concerns, right? Whether those concerns involve public safety, economic development, growth, whatever it is. Although they have elected us to act on their behalf, their viewpoints, and often I have had conversations with members of the community and they say, "Did you think about this?" And I sat there and went, "No." Right? I was like, "Okay, yeah." But we can kind of get into this feeling that we're more important than everything around us, and we're really, really not. In terms of specific examples, I will say that a lot of things are going on in public safety right now. It's not just the flavor. I hate to use that term, but it's what's trending, and a lot of this stuff that we're dealing with, not only in public safety but growth and the whole. It's about the influx of more and more people who want to move to this community, who've actually made this community better than when I came to this city back in 1994, right?
Wow.
Yeah, we had cows, right? We had a lot less people, but we had
How many
cows.
people were there back in 94?
I argue this with my wife. She said 25,000. I think it was like low 30s, somewhere in that zone. There was no East Dublin. It stopped at Count Parks, right?
Wow.
There was no developments up here. I'm on the west side, right? There were no developments. There was no Schaefer Ranch. There was nothing, no Hanson Hill, nothing in those hills, right? I used to go hiking in those hills. So you've seen a tremendous amount of growth driven by demand. And the city has kind of taken a smack for the perception by a lot of folks who've lived here that growth is out of hand. I don't agree with that. I think we did move quickly, and I do not like to look at the residential creep that I see when I look out my backyard and see all the hills and the east side and the hillsides being taken up. But I don't agree with, that developers have taken over. That's a bit much. I think they have been influential, but the city has benefited from that. And they've stored up reserves over that period of time. So there's a positive, there's a negative, and there's a positive, right? And now what they're doing is they're looking at what the future is going to be. Growth is stopping, right? There's not a lot of room left. We are dealing with the state of California on affordability housing and affordable housing. We'll talk about that too. But for the most part, the land is not there. So we need to preserve our open spaces. We need to start looking at economic development, diversification, different types of industries, different types of sectors, not just relying on old, old retail, national brands and all that. So what I'm getting at here is that the development has taken its place. We're at a point in time where we need to reassess. And with all of that growth, coming back to this, because I'm getting old and I don't want to be like Anna Rosanna Dana on Saturday Night Live here, but what we got to focus on are things that happen naturally through growth and expansion. And that is, look, we got public safety. We got economic development, which I just mentioned. We need to diversify that. But I will give you a couple of examples on public safety because that's right in front of us.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing right now is you're seeing both residential and commercial burglaries happen throughout the valley. It's happening in our community. And what I alluded to in the beginning is that as an elected official, I am ultimately responsible for making sure that the quality of life in our city and area is sustainable, right? And in doing that, that means sometimes I want to keep referring to this. You got to roll up your sleeves. You got to follow up. You got to engage. I've had members of our community get frustrated, the first things these people do is they contact the mayor, right? The mayor's going, well, yeah, go talk to whatever or whoever.
Right.
Well, I finally get those emails and I'm actually reaching out and I bring in, let's say on residential burglaries, we'll bring in the police. We'll meet with these people at City Hall. We'll offer to meet with them up at their location. We'll share information about the progress and the technologies and what they're doing, right? We'll reach out. I've gone to, there was a jewelry store in East Dublin that got, their owners got hit. They own other jewelry stores. And I went out there and I brought they were having some bump against the city. Some kind of technical issue. I said, okay, let's get these guys out there. So I went out there with the city manager and with the building department and everything else to focus on what their needs were about security. And it was about rolling up your sleeves and getting things happening. I'm not shy about that. I come from an environment where, look, your job's not finished until there's a resolution, right? One more thing I thought might be interesting, actually two more things, and I'll just quickly do it, is that, we had the whole thing with the boulevard and that area where we had people who had been incarcerated at Santa Rita were being let go. And just to give you context, these people, they were bussed in. They're bussed in from all over the Bay Area, all over the region, right? You see their buses on the freeway, right? And then they come in there, they serve their time. Usually it's relatively short term. And the county was just giving them a BART ticket and sent them on down, whatever that street is there. I keep forgetting the name of the street. Say, go to the BART station, get out of here. I'm paraphrasing a bit. I'm just kind of that. But essentially, that was it. There was no plan. And a group of residents from the boulevard reached out to me. And I brought this to the attention of the city manager and at the mayor at that time. I said, we got to talk to these people. And the mayor at that time, suddenly the light bulb went off. I said, this individual worked for the county, one of our supervisors. I said, this is a county issue as well, and it'll reflect badly. These people are, this is what's going on. So we got together with the people, and I actually got together with those people in private beforehand. So it's showing about what I'm trying to get at is that you set these, you don't ignore, you got to get in there and do your thing. In that case, we made them feel more comfortable. The other thing is I worked on the side with the sheriff and had meetings with her about what can you do. And I said, you guys are busting these people in. I'd like to see them bust out, right? So, they're working on scheduling and they're working on things, but it's about interacting and actually following up and doing something. And then I have a whole list of examples, but I feel like I'm just blabbing here for you for this, just to give you lots. But there are lots of examples. And I think we have to take personal ownership, right? In this is why we're elected, is to hear and to act upon the needs of our constituents, our residents, our merchants, right? And that's where I feel. And, there may be another one or two council members that really get into it too, but that's the way I've always operated, even in the private sector. You pull together people, you get them together, and you resolve the issue. So does that answer your question?
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, one of my questions was going to be, because transparency and bridging the gap between local government and the community is really essential to our platform. I was going to ask you about that, but you already kind of hit fix.
When you come to that, whatever number that was down there.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure that I've answered the question thoroughly.
Yeah, that's great. So that's great to hear. You also mentioned, very briefly, affordable housing, and I know that's a big topic of yours. And I think it was on your platform or on your website, you stated that our grown children, essential workers, and seniors cannot afford to live in Dublin. And how do you plan to create a truly affordable workforce housing is my next.
I'm going to lay the context out. My kids, I'm going through this right now. I'd say my kids because it's always about me, right? It's about you. It's about the moment and how it affects all of us, right? And the frustrations. But what I've been part of over the years that actually the city of Dublin has, through time, developed a very good strategy. And sorry for the motorcycle. I just decided to keep the window open to get some air in here.
I can't even hear it.
Oh, good. Okay. So what if you were to look at Dublin compared to any other city in this area, we're actually very progressive. We've done some things. I'm going to lay the context out here. It's not all about market housing, right? That's a source of revenue, property taxes, et cetera, development fees, et cetera, all that stuff. But what the city is doing is it offers a multi-tier strategy. It generates a lot and it satisfies developer requirements by addressing market rate housing. We do that, and we've been accused of overly doing it, but we do that. The other thing that we do is that we do address the affordable sector. We actually address the top end. We've got the single family homes. So let me close this door. I've got a few things going on here.
Yeah.
Hang on a second.
No problem.
There we go. We've got single family homes, multifamily homes, the whole bit that address market rate for the professionals, the executives, and the middle income folks, right? Families. But what's the hardest thing to do is to address affordable homes, and the city, and that's just not for a certain group of people, right? With economic status, that applies to a lot of different people. And what I was getting at was we need to focus on certainly those young professionals and young families who cannot afford $1 million house.
Right.
Period. That's one thing we got to do. But we also have to address the growing need that we see for seniors. They can't afford anything. If they're lucky, they got a house they can sell, right? And then they move to one of these places. But we are doing something for seniors that not a lot of other folks are. And for veterans as well. We have dedicated low-income housing specifically for veterans. There is a housing development that's going up right now specifically for seniors, low-income seniors. And we have made an effort, a strong effort, and I'll give you context on this, to push developers for that low to moderately low income inclusionary housing. And if we can't get inclusionary housing, we look for a way to extract from these developers funding so we can put it in motion. And one of the ways that we've done this, and all cities do this, they set these limits to developers to say, okay, 10% or 12% or 15% has to be low income housing. And that's helpful. And by the way, we need some fees from you. If you can kind of not defer, you can substitute that, a certain number of those units you're required to build for giving the city some fees, and they're called in lieu fees. Well, when I first came on council, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Cool. We are doing a lot of this stuff. Then I looked at the numbers. I said, wait a second here. We're not doing enough. So I had a meeting with the mayor. I said at that time, we're not talking about our current mayor, taking 2 mayors ago past me.
Got it.
And I said, I want to jack up the in lieu fees. We're getting screwed. This is recorded, I get it. But we were getting screwed. The developers were easily just taking advantage of those in lieu fees. it would cost $500,000 to build an affordable unit. And they would go around and say, well, hey, we'll give you the in lieu fees. And the in lieu fees basically came out about to $225,000. So you got a whole bunch of those guys. So I said, I want to triple the in lieu fees and I want to increase the percentage of inclusionary housing. And it took a year for me to advocate for that and get people convinced. And there were some people on council who were genuinely for that. So it wasn't just all about, whoa, I came here and introduced. There were other people on council that went along with it as well. But it took that little poke to say, we need to do a lot more. So in summary, what I'm telling you is the city has a plan. It's executing on the plan of multi-tier levels of housing and inclusionary housing and developing enough low-income housing for a lot of different people, okay? But what it's going to take is persistence and making sure that we are following through with that. So I just wanted to give you that comprehensive view that we have a lot going on, a lot more than any other city around here. And we are doing the best we can with the arena numbers and everything else, but we are doing our job. And that still hasn't satisfied me because I'm still dealing with, my own, daughters who can't afford to live here. So, and they're professionals, right? So it's work in progress is what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to be a little bit more specific on this in lieu fees. Especially, you said like you triple the in lieu fees from 225K to 3 times fees, like 750K something.
Yeah, I was able to get it to 5. I got it to 2 times. They came back and said, fine, that's better. So I got it. I think right now it's around 500. It's not a flat, it's a formulaic number, and I can get that to you. But basically what in lieu fees are is you can substitute up to 40% of the requirement for low income housing by paying the fees. Okay. So you have, let's just say we out of 15%, 40% of that can be substituted with in lieu fees. So the developers were just like, yeah, cool. Here's your 225 per unit, right? And it would have otherwise costed them 550. I think that's what it is.
So what happens with this in lieu fees money that
we put it in reserve, and it's dedicated to low income housing projects. We've used that throughout the city for various projects that I was explaining to you about, and only for low income housing developments. Okay, so it may be ownership structures, like condominiums and things like that, or it may be apartments as well.
So which one is the last ownership structure for the apartments that was being made, like condominiums which were being made in Dublin? Which were the last for sale affordable full affordable?
Well, we have some right now that are going on in East Dublin. Francis Ranch is one that's in progress. We also did some conversions too that were in East Dublin. I'm trying to remember the names of them off the top of my head. I can't remember the names. I can give you a list of that if that would be helpful to you. Some of the projects in mid Dublin as well. So what you're seeing right now is you're seeing some development efforts throughout the city. In the east side, we've got the Dublin Center that we are allocating some of those fees for a what would I call it? It's a living space for adults with disabilities, for example. And then we have a couple of other ones over here. But I can certainly get back to you with a list of affordable housing units.
Sure. I mean, if there is, we'll probably take that screenshot in our publishment.
Okay.
When we publish the article, we can use that as a screenshot.
Yep.
Because
let me write it down. So just give you a list.
Yeah,
of
any,
available units
even if
recent.
it's later, that's okay too.
Well, it's important.
Yeah.
And I do have that information. So, but I wanted to give you the impression that we're doing a real good job. Some people are more prone to helping out than on council than others. And that's another reason why I'm running. So,
What was that?
okay.
So, do you want to go on the next question about for the current mayor? If you were there for last 1 year, what would be different that you would have seen?
Okay.
If
So
you
this one,
have been there for the 25.
yeah. So if I had been for the current term and I went
Mhm.
ahead, I think I want to put it back to my original concept. And I think the mayor should be far more hands-on and take ownership, right? It's not a delegatory. If stuff's not getting done, you get in there and you do it and you work with whoever it is to make sure it keeps moving. There's nothing more to it than that.
I hear what you mean. Definitely.
You know what I'm talking about. It's
Yes,
like
exactly.
you push it just like you would anywhere else if you want something to succeed, right?
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter what the issue is. It could be public safety or anything else, right? But the accountability and the ownership, in my opinion, stops with the mayor.
Okay.
And that mayor needs to, if they're the face of the city, they need to make sure that things are happening and there is some resolution. Another thing I just for more
Specific.
practical, rather conceptual, is that if it's not about some of the other things that we're talking about. One of your questions were, hey, if there's anything else that's going on, and this is kind of answering that question too. I think that there are some low hanging fruit that we should be focusing on. One is the traffic and the infrastructure. And if you ever get out on our Dublin roads, particularly on the east side during commute hours, it's nasty. You're dropping off your kid, it's nasty. And, I sit over here on the west side and go, yeah, okay, I'm this retired guy. I don't have to deal with it. And then I go over there and it's like, oh boy, right? So I would work I would have worked for a resolution on that already. I would have gotten it done. Coordinating traffic lights, looking for making sure that our roads are addressed, our road issues are addressed, our traffic is addressed. That to me is something that's very fundamental and can be addressed easily within a year. And we haven't done it. We're going in that direction, but it could have been done a lot faster, right? And then the last thing I think is back to the more conceptual or philosophical, besides the hands-on idea, is that you got to generate respect from your council members because you are leading council meetings. You're the face. You are interacting with everybody, or you should be. And you got to gain their respect. One of the things that I have achieved over time is I do have that respect. And I went through some difficult times with some council members and trying to get them in the right direction, we'll say, without going into a lot of detail. And they swayed. And it's okay. It's human nature, right? But it's about building the respect. We need somebody who has that level of respect. And with that respect, you're driving consensus. People believe in what you're saying when you are advocating for a certain direction, right? So one would be hands-on, roll up your sleeves, find resolution. Two is, hey, we got a traffic problem. We got issues, making sure we're making the right infrastructure improvements. And two, it's about grinding through and making sure that you have earned the respect of your fellow council members.
Great. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'll do one more question, Chirag, or I'll do one and then you can do one.
I thought for sure you'd be asking me about the Dublin extension, but yeah, whatever.
Well, that is one of our questions. Maybe I'll do this one and then we can end with one last one. But yeah, what is, as you've mentioned, one very talked about topic is the Dublin Boulevard extension to connect with Livermore. What is your take on it, and including your opinion on Measure 2?
Yeah, I don't know if it's Measure II, Measure Romanet 2, or Measure 2. It's like whatever, right?
Oh, do people call it all different things?
They call it Measure II. They call it Measure II because that's what they say. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, and I do have a lot of background. Depends. I'm assuming you have a complete understanding of the whole Dublin extension, that the first mile of the mile and a half is city, and we're working with developers. There's a cost to the whole thing, right? And we're working with developers. We're looking at commercial, retail, different types of industries going in there, industry sectors, residential, open space parks. That first mile is going to happen, and we're going to make sure that the developers pay for that part. So what we're really talking about in this last thing is that last half mile connectivity there. And historically, you understand, you've read it all. It's like, okay, there was this historical, I call it legislation back in 2004 or whatever it was, about keeping an open space, but conditions were there. And so this whole Measure II was about, quite frankly, it was about what to do and how to make that connectivity and how to pay for that connectivity, and to allow the council to have discretion over projects. We viewed it, the city, when I say we, it's the city, viewed it initially as, hey, this is not a project. Okay, I'm not going to go into all that, the whole thing. And some of that, that Measure II would permit some limited development along the freeway, southern part of the 1,200-foot line. I guess that's what it is. Ironically, the whole ironic part about this is the Dublin extension leads right into the backyard of that casino over there. I thought that was humorous as hell. So, but yeah, roads, structures. So to answer your question, the first thing that happened was a message was sent out to the public to vote. And it was all about, oh, hey, let's build this beautiful road, all these other benefits to it. And, it wasn't very clearly stated to the public, and it did pass. The measure passed, and it did not pass strongly. It passed 53 to 47%. Okay. And that was obviously challenged. We were led by our counsel, who said, yeah, this should be no problem, et cetera, et cetera. And we had a very strong case. Okay, run with it. Go ahead. Whatever, right? Even though the message was a bit, in my personal opinion, could have been a little more transparent, or a lot more transparent, we had a certain particular view. Fine. Then, long story short, we lost the trial court. And we chose not to continue. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was the one who was probably the most vocal out of everybody. I said, I don't have the confidence in what you're telling me that going to the next level and continuing to pay money is going to lead us with a reasonable degree of certainty to success. And I said, we went along this route. We're here. This is taxpayers' dollars. And I don't think this is something that we should be blowing out money, quite a bit of money, to continue to chase this, right? All the way to the Supreme Court, if necessary. So it was an economic perspective from me. And because of my background in finance, that's the first thing I'm rather myopic about that. Things have to make sense. They have to have some kind of tangible benefit, right? Whether it's monetary or services or something. And I couldn't see the benefit of this, right? I couldn't see them. It was, to me, it was, and to the majority of council, this was a waste of money. Okay. And we got a lot of positive vibes from the community about this. A lot. Right. So, one thing I'm going to digress just for a moment is that because one of the things that I do stand by is anything, extensions, projects, anything and everything that we do better have substantial information. It better have a convincing narrative to it, right? Otherwise, it's go back there and get me more. I want to understand. And that originally I voted no against Measure II. And it was because I didn't have enough information. You're cramming this down my throat, and I need all of this information. So that's my history with it. Look, I wasn't in favor with it because it was not clear and transparent. It went through, it got on there, it was voted in narrowly, right? And it came back. So I'm just continuing on with the way I look at things. And that's what that whole thing's about. The last thing I will say is that, and I want to make sure this is clear, the developer, or I should say, not the developer, the property owner, and they formed an LLC called Libor Manning, right? They're picking it up and they're challenging it. And the thing I wanted to make darn clear about was that we're not involved. We're not working with them. If they prevail, okay, it's the law, right? If they don't prevail, it's their cost. We are, in the words of our council, we are bystanders. We're there as spectators to see how it goes. We are not involved in the suit, just to let you know. So it will come back to the courts. We're just spectators and seeing what's going on. We are not collaborating with them at all. We get updates, but we are not collaborating. So that's where that whole Measure II has been. Things have to make sense for me from a very mechanical kind of perspective, because in the end, it's about taxpayer money and are we getting the services that we really are there for, okay? So I can go on and on, wax philosophical with you, but I think you got the whole point on that, right?
Yes, I think you covered it really well. I did not think any question you left in between. You
Yeah.
did I mean,
Okay.
addressed it end to end.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then should we just do the last question, which I think is one of the most important, but why do you want to be the mayor of Dublin?
Okay, because the mayor, a good mayor, is going to have the depth of understanding and experience, whether it's, financial understanding of budgets, understanding of what we need for economic development, what we need for transportation. When I say that's also infrastructure, right? It's traffic lights and all that, and how to manage growth in general. Water resources. You can see from my bio, I have a whole bunch of experience sitting on many, many different committees that have addressed this, and I've chaired some of those committees. It's about understanding not just, superficial, high-level stuff It's not about the pageantry. You know, I will say I heard a quote by a former mayor while he was arguing with one of the council members who said that she was entitled to be the vice mayor for the third time. And he said very clearly, it's not about ribbon cutting. It's not about the pageantry. It's about the city. It's about the people, right? And the leadership we have right now, it's more about, hey, look at me, look at what I am doing, but the understanding of what is needed has been pushed aside. Okay. So I'm running to get things back on course, get some credibility going, build a solid communication level with residents. You've heard the word transparency until you're sick of it. It's kind of cliche now, but it's true. There's a lot of work to be done. The city's done a tremendous job on their media outreaches, but it's more about get your feet on the ground, get out there, make phone calls. Come on, council, be engaged with your community. Don't just, go to the ribbon cuttings and do these routine things, right? Get in there. Let's start moving, right? So it essentially, it's about leadership. It's about improving leadership. It's about gaining that respect. It's about, I come to the table with some very, very strong experience. And I think I can make an impact, an immediate impact on the landscape, we'll say. So that's why I'm running.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It was great to learn about you and your campaign. And Chirag, do you have any more questions?
So, Mike, you were a mayor before, right?
Yeah.
So, in that to this term, right? You were before Sherry, right?
Yes.
Before
But
Sherry
I was
went in,
appointed.
Melissa. Okay, you were appointed after Melissa went for another role.
Went for Bart.
But
Which,
okay.
in retrospect, maybe she had second thoughts about that. But anyway, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I was like, you got elected in last year, right? In 2024. So if the same situation happens, right? If you become a mayor, you'll be appointing another council member.
Yes.
So
Yes.
can
There
you
are two
throw some thoughts in
options.
it? Yeah.
There are two options. One is more practical than the other. One is you appoint somebody, which will probably absolutely be the case. Or two, you have a special election and nobody wants that, right? Because they're expensive, unless you've got a whole bunch of other things during that election. So it's not cost effective to have a special election. Yeah, the answer to your question is we'd have an appointment. Yes.
Okay.
For
That should
nothing,
be all.
zero, right? Right? No cost.
No, it's all right. I think that should be all for now. Molly, you want to?
No, that's it. Thank you so
I
much.
think it was a
Well, I
very
hope you have enough.
Yes.
I hope you have enough material. If
Definitely.
you need anything else, some of the things that the other questions we didn't quite hit because maybe we spent a little too much time or
That's
I was
fine.
talking too much on something. But, just get back to me if you had any other questions.
Great.
Definitely.
And once we post the interview and the article, we'll make sure to send it to you.
Before we publish
Yeah,
it.
you can look it over.
Okay, that would be helpful just to make sure that there are
We
no.
need the picture of the list of the housing projects as well.
Yeah, I'll get you that. That's
Just
easy to do.
yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
That's it.
we can send it to you before we publish.
Yeah, one of the things that we've got some great papers around here. Well, some days are great, but sometimes they don't get all the facts straight. And I just want to make sure you guys have some credibility going on here. It's good. And I
So
want to make sure that you've got what you need and you're saying it the right way. So
this video recording would be embedded in that.
Yeah.
you got it.
And we work with a lot of like live quotes. So
Sure.
a lot of it you'll
Sure.
see once
Cool.
you read the article will be coming directly from you, which will be good.
Sounds good. I didn't tell any bad jokes, so you're good.
Sure.
Well, thank you again for meeting with us.
We don't have to
And-
cut anything.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Enjoy
it.
St. Patty's, everyone.
Oh, same to you. Well,
Bye-bye.
yeah, we're almost done. So,
Yeah.
all right, you guys take care.
All right.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Michael.
talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Let me. Oh wait.